This particular intro song should make you understand why I picked it today, just by listening to the lyrics really closely. Blazers battle back hard, thanks in part to a good fourth quarter from guys like Caleb Love, Sidy Cissoko, and all I can say is listen real quick. That's right, you're gonna go far, kid. You're gonna go far, kid, because the kids, they're all right here in Moda Center. They showed up in the fourth quarter big time when the Blazers needed them most on a night when it was up and down and way closer than it needed to be. The old men carried the water for most of it. Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday kept the Blazers in it, and then in that fourth quarter when the Blazers needed one final spark, it was the kids. Sidy Cissoko had a good fourth quarter. Caleb Love caught fire. Exactly what they needed as the Blazers pick up a much-needed victory over the Memphis Grizzlies, 122-115. Welcome into the fifth quarter. Chris Burkhardt here with you. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. You can also hit us up on the text line, 88528, or go to youtube.com, type in Rip City Radio, and join the chat there. Where Sean's already saying, Blazers, go Blazers. Sean's going to have to get on my payroll. Sean's helping me out here because, I'm sitting there in the pregame show, and he's like, yeah, Spencer's out. And I'm like, yeah, he might be. Last I saw, he's questionable. I'm just waiting for the final word from the official PR account. And then he didn't play tonight. So shout out to you, Sean. Also, that lunch bet looking good in my favor because I told you Blazers would go 500 500 or better the rest of the way. So far, 2-0 since I made that bet. Of course, it was two of the air quotes easier games to start this second half, if you will. But we will see what happens the rest of the way. Hopefully they can continue to get it done. Today was one of those weird games, absolutely weird. I think if you were watching this, there's a couple times where you're like, if they were actually playing the full health Memphis Grizzlies, they might be down by 15. We talked about in the pregame show, don't leave the door open. Slam it shut. I just, whack, close it. Don't give them space. Don't open that door for them at all. They left the door wide open. They left the front door open and the back door open. There was a nice little cross breeze going through. And Memphis stayed in the game way too long. Way too long. And then that fourth quarter, the defense stepped up, got the stops they needed. Like I said, Caleb Love ended up getting a couple nice baskets, big threes when they needed him to. Sidy Cissoko was getting stops. Fourth quarter was glorious for your Portland Trailblazers as they outscore Memphis. They went into that quarter down 8. They outscore them 34-19. Now, taking a look at the Bucks score points in the paint was 48-44 in favor of the Blazers. Second chance points, which we said was going to be a big factor in this one because of the rebound battle. They need to get those offensive rebounds, get second chance points, especially with Memphis having a small lineup with so many people hurt. Second chance points, 24-4 in favor of the Trailblazers. That is massive. Massive. Fast break points was 18-10 in favor of Memphis. Bench points 61-37 in favor of Memphis. Turnovers, Portland had 17 of them. Memphis had 15, but Portland did have more points off of those turnovers. Taking a look at the individual box scores, Meshack in the start for Memphis. He had 8 points, a rebound, and an assist. Gigi Jackson had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 11 points from Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, 11 points from KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 13 from Ty Jerome. Walter Clayton had 8. Javon Small, 22 points, good game for him. And I think one of the reasons the Blazers were able, the Grizzlies were able to get a lead early and hold on to it for most of this game, and again, keep it closer than it needed to be, was Olivier Maxence Prosper. Prosper, 9 of 13 from the field, 7 of 8 from beyond the arc. He led the Memphis Grizzlies with 25 points, and we'll talk about him here and that defense because Coach Tiago Splitter had some good things to say about why he had that game. Toumani Camara, 8 points, 7 rebounds, and an assist for your Portland Trailblazers. Sidy Cissoko, 7 points, 10 rebounds 4 assists. So good job there, picking up the slack with no Robert Williams in the lineup tonight. We talked about how important rebounding was going to be. Portland did win that battle, 48-36, 14 offensive rebounds to just 5 of Memphis. That's exactly what you want to see. Donovan Clingan, massive game. 20 points, 19 rebounds, 2 block shots, another double-double. And DC had some shortcomings today. And Coach talked about him. I tweeted about him. I complained about it, but I didn't want to I want to make sure it wasn't a complaint like he was having a bad game. He had a really good game, but with the defensive scheme, the Blazers were trying to drop a little bit, keep him in the paint. And Thiago talked about after game about how he's so good down in the paint, you want to keep him down there. But then in a team like this, when they go so small, you do struggle a little bit because you can't get out and defend that three-point line. They put him up a little higher in the second half, and he still got beat a few times. Young Hansen got in there. He got beat in that same coverage sometimes. So at least Thiago Splitter, I thought at the end at the press conference, said, we told him that, those were too many threes, but in that situation, that's not your fault. That's ours. That's a schematic thing. But it is hard because you don't want to get him out of the paint because he does so good down there. In Memphis, when they did get into the paint, yes, they had 44 points, but there was some fast breaks in there. There was a lot of offensive rebounds when Donovan Clingan wasn't in because the Blazers did go small. A lot of offensive rebounds they were able to get back. Donovan Clingan had a massive impact on this game, even though defending the three-point arc was not his strong point in this one. Jeremy Grant, 29 points to lead the Trailblazers in scoring. He was 6 of 10 from beyond the arc. Drew Holiday, 21 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds. A pretty decent game from him. Yes, he had 3 turnovers, but everyone had a few turnovers in this one. I'm not upset about that. I thought he had a good game overall. Caleb Love, like I said, you're going to go far, kid. Picked it for a reason. Didn't play last night. Blazers trying to save those two-way days. He only has a finite amount of those before they're either forced to convert his contract or send him down to the remix. And we have talked about that a lot. We know what needs to happen to convert that contract. They need to find open roster spots, which they just don't have right now. So they're being smart with how they play him the rest of the way. So he went from not playing last night into tonight, hitting big shots when they need him to. He had 17 points and 8 assists. Vit Krejci was 2 of 5 from beyond the arc. He had 10 points, also hit some big shots down the stretch. And Blake Wesley had 10 points in this one. Young Hansen and Ryan Rupert did not score, neither did Javante Cook, but you can't fault him. He only played 18 seconds. Biggest lead of the night for Memphis, 11 points. Biggest lead for the Portland Trailblazers was 9. And, yeah, they turned that around. Got through, got the victory. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's not the most fun, but you got to give a little bit of credit that they were able to gut this one out and make those moves in the fourth quarter. Now what will be interesting is how you adjust a little bit. I think, first off, you've seen DC get beat down low and in space over the last few games. Jared Allen was a big guy who just was outpacing DC, and it ended up leading to a career high because he was getting so many points in transition and down low. Mark Williams had a good game when Phoenix came into town. And in this one, they don't go big, they go small. And DC's inability to get from the paint to beyond the arc hurt them a little bit. As our YouTube chatters are talking about, Olivier Maximus Decimus. No, Olivier Prosper had 7 of 8 from beyond the arc and did well. He hit the open shots he needed to. DC couldn't get out there. And it wasn't just a DC problem. It was a Young Hansen problem as well. He couldn't get out there. 3 shots in a row. But, yeah, Olivier Maxence Prosper. Very good game. 25 points to lead the scores for Memphis, and they needed all those buckets. That's what they were able to stay in this game. They were able to stay in this game. Sam in the chat says Metallica song tonight. Sanitarium. Fourth quarter game broke towards the end. I get that. It was one of those games. Welcome to where time stands still. No one leaves. No one will. Speaking of Sam, I do got to give Sam the massive shout out of the night. The family stopped by. He was looking for me the other day. He couldn't find me, but his dad and his sister stopped by and were able to drop off this book written by my friend Sam, illustrated by his sister Alexis. This thing is beautiful. Mrs. Know-It-All's Awesome Adventures of Alphabetical Rhymes, the follow-up to his first book, written, illustrated by him, illustrated by his sister. Absolutely wonderful. Can't wait to dig into this one and read it to my kids. So a big shout out to my friend Sam and Alexis and the family out there. That is absolutely a thing of beauty. And look at this cover. Look at this cover art these kids are doing nowadays. The next generation is in good hands. I guess I could have used the offspring for my friend Sam, not just Caleb Love, because you're gonna go far, kid. You're gonna go far, kid. Thank you for that book tonight. But looking back at the chat, though, real quick, like I said, Sanitarium, very fitting song. So I like the fact that you chose that. Marcus says, very much digging what I'm seeing from Vic Krejci. Yes, he's been great. And Eric Weldon, today was funny because the Grizzlies almost brought an entirely new squad. They pretty much did. I mean, Ty Jerome played tonight, didn't play last night. A couple guys just had to shuffle around. It was a pretty crazy game. Yes, Eric Weldon, for those of you on YouTube who can see the book, they said the kids got better art than AI. Yes, they do. They're very, very talented with the drawing they were able to do. She was telling me how she did it. It's really cool. Like, the backgrounds are painted on canvas, and then the action shot, if you will, is made in clay. So that background is painted on canvas, but like this little character here, done in clay. I mean, just a mixing of multiple art forms. It's very, very creative, and you love to see it. So thanks for the shout out there. And back to Marcus's point real quick on Veet. Really, really liking what we're seeing from him in 3 games. He's starting to get more comfortable with the offense, that's for sure. But there was a couple things tonight that stood out to me, and it was on the defensive side. He's not a defensive stopper. He does show good effort on that end, though, which I like, which I did laugh. I'm like, that's where the bar is in Portland over the last few years. If you just show effort, we're excited. Like, we're excited. And he's giving you effort on that end, which is nice. I like that. But it wasn't just giving effort. It was the communication. Because I saw a few times where he was in Donovan Klingen's ear trying to point him out, hey, get over here in transition, and really getting people where they need to be, being not like a coach on the floor type. And it was interesting because it wasn't just like he was just randomly yelling stuff, because at one point in the game he's sitting there and he's looking at Donovan, and he's like holding Donovan's hand almost. He's like, over here, out here. He wants him to get on the paint. Donovan gets out there late, and by the time he kind of realized what Veet was trying to get him to do, there was a shooter, ball in his hands. He takes it, makes a 3. So Veet was on it. Like, he knew where they were going. Called it ahead of time. Donovan just didn't pick up it. Those are a couple little things that I really liked from Veet Krejci on the defensive end, making some smart choices, and was able to really communicate where things were going. So if he can start to show that side of his game as well, get people in the right spot, I like that. I like that a lot. Weldon says, whoa, Claymation returns, Mr. Bill Clayfighter, which makes me think that is an all-time underrated Super Nintendo Entertainment System game, SNES for us old heads. But Clayfighter was awesome. Back in the day when fighters were all the rage, and you had Mortal Kombat, and you had Street Fighter, you had Killer Instinct, there was this little known game called Clayfighter, which definitely worth a retro play for all you video game heads out there. All right, this is the 5th quarter. I'm your host, Chris Burkhardt. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number, where we head out right now to Tall Tim, who's been waiting patiently. Tall Tim, welcome into the 5th quarter, my friend.
Thank you very much. I think this pickup of this guy we got from Atlanta, I can't expect the guy to come in first game and just be knocking him down. But this game, you're really seeing he's figuring out where he can be effective, and the team's also making passes to him where he's not as completely covered up. And like you said, you mentioned it was a lot smarter defensively than I thought. He may not have the foot speed and the strength to shield off every guy, but he knows kind of where to be, and he knows how, kind of like you said, he can kind of see where it's going. So having smart guys, and then I think one person that doesn't get enough credit tonight is keeping us afloat until we could get somewhere was Kamara. Just not letting finally, just not letting those guys just bowl their way around, and he kept it in check. And then I think when you want to know who you want to have play, the cream rises to the top in the fourth quarter, and you saw that. Love. Just one of those typical games where you're like, well, maybe you should sit down, can't make anything, and then all of a sudden he turns the game around, not only with his shots but just getting the ball, being pesky. Like you said, Veet finally started making some shots and making a thing, and clinging off. As much as he was getting beat by these guys who, played him again. Good luck making the same shots, but he just kept pounding away and racking up numbers, and that's what it's all about. And then Grant, as much as people think, well, we should trade that guy, how are you going to get this better? When it comes right down to it, now that he's playing off the bench, where are you going to get a better bench player than Grant? So this was a fun game. Sometimes it's cool to be, down a little bit. It's like a movie, right? You get down, then the hero comes back and wins. So this was a one that I enjoyed. Obviously, we would have lost. I would have had a whole different outlook on it. But
yes.
Seeing the pieces put together.
No, you're absolutely right, Tim, and thanks for the call as always. It's the pieces are coming together, and there's a lot to like. I'm glad that you keyed on the same thing I keyed on with Veet, though. Again, you don't have to necessarily have the all-world talent on that end to make an impact. Vocally, you could tell that he knew where to be and was getting people in the right position, which is absolutely valuable on that end. He gives the effort, and I do like that. But again, there was multiple times where he's telling Donovan Clingan to get out there. Donovan Clingan just didn't get out there in time. And Coach Thiago Splitter, I think, is smart enough to understand too. I mean, he admitted that a lot of those threes, yeah, there were way too many of them, but those were less Donovan Clingan's fault and less Young Hanson's fault and more his fault schematically for wanting to keep him in the paint a little bit. But I can also understand that because when you put Clingan in the paint, guys don't want to come to the paint. It's just the unfortunate part is he doesn't space and get out to the three-point line very quickly when you need him to. Not like a guy like Zach Collins when he was here, who, yes, Zach Collins has the holes in his game too, and unfortunately was injured for quite a bit, still is there in Chicago. But one thing I loved about Zach when he was here was his ability to get from the paint to the three-point line for a big man was incredible. Incredible. DC doesn't have that. Young Hanson doesn't have it. But at least you find other ways to impact the game. Like DC, okay, he made a couple, Prosper made a couple shots over him. You were listening to Coach, you were playing where you need to be. On the other end of the floor, though, making buckets, getting rebounds, darn near a 20-20 double-double. Those are the type of things I like. Those are the type of things I like. I can live with that game. I think that was a pretty good game from Donovan Clingan outside of those three-pointers. But even so, when Coach admits that was more the scheme than it was Donovan Clingan making bad plays, I'll agree with that. I'll listen to the coach. All right, this is the fifth quarter. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. You can also hit us up on the text line, 88528, where lots of our texts during the game actually were loving Veet. Absolutely. He has been incredible. And, of course, you can go to youtube.com, type in Rip City Radio, and join the chat there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, going to hit you with our drive of the night, shot of the night. Still have Coach's Corner and a game ball to hand out all right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio, 620. Chris Burkhardt here for you. There was your drive of the night. Chad just came up here, though, joking aside. Chad just came up here to help tear down a little bit. He's heading down to, go take care of some business. He's got big Super Bowl shows to do tomorrow. And he was just talking. The first thing he comes in and he just says, he's like, "Oh, Donovan Clingan was good tonight, wasn't he?" And it's funny because we just got done talking about that. And, I thought Donovan Clingan was great. The 3-point thing, I'm going to let slide a little bit. So-so, fitty-fitty, as they say. He needs to get out on that 3-point line and absolutely find a way to guard it. Move from the mid-range and get out there, especially when guys like Prosper are getting so hot. But back to what Tiago Splitter said, and we'll hear from him here in a little bit when we head to the coach's corner. He said that was more of a scheme thing, and that's on him. Tried to make adjustments, need to make a few more, but in general, that was a him thing. So hopefully they can adjust to that too, because that's 3 games really where they brought those bigs down a little bit, and then the 3-point was left open, and they couldn't get out there to defend it. And that's not a good recipe when you're playing guys like Memphis. They're going small. They're going to want to try to shoot that ball. They took advantage. Big shout out to Prosper. Very good game. He gave Memphis a chance to win it. And then on the other side of that, shout out to the Blazers in the fourth quarter for making sure that door was slammed shut. I had talked about wanting to slam that door shut, but slamming the door shut in the first quarter. Slam it shut. Stomp on the bug. Put it to bed. Just took too long to do it. They let Memphis stay in the game. And the Blazers are very, very lucky that they got away with the W, because one thing I talked about in the pregame show with you guys, and most of you will agree, is the fact that in these situations when you leave a door open against a team that you should beat, leaving the door open is when they bust through it, throw you back out in the backyard, and then close the door behind you. They get the win. I think that game in Washington is an example of Portland just being lazy and lackadaisical and leaving the door open. And Washington took advantage and got that win. And tonight, massive shout-out to Memphis's skeleton crew. I mean, half that team was out. No Ja Morant, no Santi Alderman, no Brandon Clark, no Cedric Coward, no Cam Spencer. I mean, the list goes on. Obviously, no Jaren Jackson Jr. because they traded him. And those guys played their tails off. So shout out to them. Blazers just left that door open a little too long. I do like the fact that they did find the ability to finally slam it shut. Sean says, this was a night the Blazers really could have used Thibault to block some threes. So he is pretty good at that. Thibault is an interesting case here because I've argued that it makes a lot of sense that the Blazers could waive him because obviously freeing up that spot for a City Sissoko type. And we'll see what happens as Sissoko gets ever closer to his max. Matisse Thybulle sounds like doing some investigation. Is a guy that this front office does really, really like still, and just the availability part is something that's a sticking point. We will see what happens with him and any of the other players on this roster as we head closer to this deadline, if you will, of signing those two-way guys. I know the team does covet both Caleb Love and City Sissoko, but you do have to be careful too because you can balance this out and just not burn their two-way days. Because this is the thing. Let's be honest for a sec. Let's look at Caleb Love for a great example. Do you convert him and cut someone in the process, or do you just be smart with how you use his remaining 7 games on the two-way deal? Because is it worth cutting someone and signing Caleb Love right now at this moment when, if you're moving forward on Monday, when you have Drew Holiday, you have Blake Wesley, you have Scoot Henderson, you have Vit Krejci who's playing guard, you have City Sissoko who you started in place of the injured Shaedon Sharpe, and then you may or may not have Shaedon Sharpe back. He's likely to get Caleb Love, likely to get a DMP. So do you cut Chris Murray or Matisse Thybulle to open up a spot for a guy who's going to get a DMP? The answer's probably not. So I think you are smart with his remaining two-way days. Keep in mind there's at least, I think there's 3 more back-to-backs that you're probably Scoot's not going to play on the second of those. I would assume just how they've handled these injuries, and does it make sense to play him? So there's games that Caleb Love can play. So that's one part right there. Sidy Cissoko, on the other hand, has played himself into the contract because of that versatility. Anyone 1 through 5 can be out of the lineup, and you can put him in there to start just because he's plug and play with how they do. He's not lighting up the scoreboard or any of that, but he makes a difference. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch how they decide to build out that roster the rest of the way. But no, Sean, like I get what you're saying. When Thibault can get out there and block threes, it's a fun thing. I mean, remember him coming back last year, and that's how you win in that game against Toronto. Matisse Thibault, it's is what it is. I love him. And the thing is, I know that I talk about, the prospects and the ability, the opening, if you will, to cut him at some point and open up contract spots. But I also understand, too, like, I love Matisse Thybulle. The greatest ability is availability, and he hasn't been very available over the last 2 seasons. Since the start of last year to this point, he's played 19 games. But you could put him on the best defensive lineups this team has. Drew Holiday, Tumani Kamara, throw Blake Wesley out there, Matisse Thybulle, Donovan Clingan, or Robert Williams. Robert Williams, I really like his defense is big. And Thybulle still stands out. Like, that's how good he is on the defensive end. It's just a matter of being healthy, which he hasn't been. That is the unfortunate part for Matisse. But I do like him. I do like him a lot. And I like, again, the Blazers' ability to find a W today when things were looking just a little hairy all the way through. If you want to join the conversation with us here, phone number is 503-248-0620. You can also hit us up on the text line 88528, where one of our texters says, great game tonight. DC is turning into a blue chip prospect. Tumani has strong candidacy for Defensive Player of the Year. Veet was clutch, and Drew really helps us slow down. I'm glad we have veterans like him to regulate the pace. JG is a sniper from the right corner. Overall, great game. Very good game. Just, again, a very good game. Shout out to Drew and Grant, who obviously get a lot of the trade rumors and this and that thrown with their names in it because of the contracts and yada, yada, yada. But they were a huge reason you stayed in this game and had a chance. And like we said, we used The Offspring, You're Going to Go Far, Kid, as an intro song because late in the game when it was getting tight, the young kids really, really stepped up. They absolutely did. Sean asks, if Sidy or Love get signed to a full contract, then can they sign another player into a two-way spot? And the answer to that question is yes, they absolutely can. Which is interesting because I thought Blake Hinson might be a candidate for that, but Utah signed him off the Rip City remix to a two-way contract today. So I thought that could have been a possibility. Talking to our insider, Sean Hyken, he was talking about how what does make sense for a two-way contract is to say they do cut Matisse Thybulle or a Chris Murray, for example, and open up a spot and sign a Sidy Cissoko. In talking to Sean Hyken, he brought up the good point that it would make sense to look to a two-way big again because you lost that Dwap Reith guy. And if you can go get a two-way big that you can trust to come in and play minutes when you need him to, it's a guy 6'10", 7 foot, good rebounder, doesn't have to be a big floor spacer or anything, but just a two-way center that you can trust if things get dire. That's probably where they would go for the rest of the year. But yeah, once you sign Sidy, it takes that two-way spot, converts it to a regular spot, and now you have that two-way spot open again. So yes, they can go sign another player into that spot. Very good question. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on the fifth quarter. When we come back, we're going to head to the coach's corner. Going to hand out a game ball as well. But before we do, it is time for your shot of the night.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill. Time for the fifth quarter shot of the night on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Here's Hollinston, was not ready for the pass, turned it over. Here come the Grizzlies on the other end. And it's kicked away and stolen by Sidy Cissoko. It was a 2-on-1. Repair kicks. Grant corner three. Yes! That's a 5-point swing thanks to Sidy Cissoko.
Come visit Weimar at the Pacific.
Say that again.
What was the difference in the fourth quarter for you guys?
Yeah, I think the defense was better. At the end of the day, I think, as you guys know, they were playing small, and we have a center out there with DC or Hansen, or even we went small a little bit, but we couldn't guard the rim, and they were taking shots. Prosper was making a lot of shots over DC. Then we put him on Meshack, and he didn't make that many. I think we were better also switching and veering back and being smarter in those positions. Defense was the key, and of course we kept making shots on offense. Problem wasn't on offense during the whole game; was the defense. When they play small like that and they just be at the perimeter, you got to bring your five out and create different difficulties for your defense. But finally, we had a good quarter on defense there in the fourth quarter, and that's the thing. Also, turnovers is a big thing. I think first half we had 13 turnovers, and the whole second half we had 4. So taking care of the ball is huge. You don't have them running at you in transition with easy baskets. So guarding better, turnovers, 19 points for them in the fourth quarter. That's the difference.
How important was Caleb's little stretch at the beginning of the fourth quarter to turn things around?
Yeah, I think he was, first of all, his defense was better. I always tell him, I know you're going to hoop on offense, but you got to defend. You got to be active, use your hands. And I think he did that. He was active. He got a steal, layup in transition. So he was huge on their part, scoring from the bench. Him and Vid, I think, were great from the bench.
Have you seen Vid get more comfortable as he's played more games with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, he's, like I said, I've been saying this to you guys, and he's a smart player. He's quick decisions, and of course, he's known by his shooting, but not just that. He's a great basketball player. He can do a lot of things. He creates for others. He cuts, he drives, he kicks out the ball. Very, very, very happy with his production.
Who is the MVP tonight for the Trailblazers? It's time for Game Balls on Fifth Quarter, live from the Coors Light Studios. Coors Light, choose chill.
Well, Rip City, look who's in the house tonight. None other than number 50, Zebo Zach Randolph. Glad to have you back at Moda.
That's right, a special appearance tonight from Zebo Zach Randolph. Buck Williams was in the house tonight as well. Scottie Pippen was in the house last night. So a fun little 2 nights for Blazers legends here. Zach Randolph was fun as a Blazer. Then he went to Memphis. He was there for 8 seasons, played in 6 for Portland. So I don't know which team he is rooting on tonight. He wasn't wearing any Memphis or Portland gear. So unbiased, right down the middle. Nah, he had some rooting interest. I didn't get a chance to ask him. But always cool to see Zebo, who, yes, the tenure might have had its ups and downs, but he was pretty smooth with it. That little mid-range jumper of his was filthy. And never forget Zach Randolph being drafted and letting slip that he had a conversation with Coach Cheeks, and that was how the world found out that the Blazers had hired Maurice Cheeks. Oh, the history of Zach Randolph and the Portland Trailblazers. It is time now to hand out a game ball, though. Who am I going to look at? I think the game ball has to go dual. I know I like to hand out one, but sometimes it takes 2 of them. I'm slicing down the middle. You got to give one to Donovan Clingan, despite those defensive mishaps, which, again, you can blame on a little bit of the scheme from Coach Thiago Splitter. He came up big, 20 points, 19 rebounds, a couple block shots. When they needed him to show up and clean the glass, that was going to be absolutely crucial tonight with that small lineup. He did, and I got to give him credit for that. The other guy who gets the game ball, Caleb Love, hit a couple big shots in the fourth quarter, defensively stepped up when Thiago Splitter challenged him to do so. So big performance from him. Absolutely love to see it. Now, real quick before we head out of here tonight, I do want to look at the NBA standings and answer a good question here on our YouTube chat from my man Sean. He says, where do you think Cam Thomas signs? That's a really good question. I don't know where he fits in stylistically. He can go out and score, does tend to get the label of being a bit of a black hole. Does he make the team around him better? Brooklyn did cut him, but again, don't know exactly what they're trying to do. They're just kind of rudderless at this point, sitting there at 14 and 37. A couple teams I could look out for. I know they are down bad. One of the worst teams, actually currently the worst record in the NBA, the Sacramento Kings. But keep in mind that trade for DeAndre Hunter, they lost Keon Ellis, they lost Dennis Schroeder. They're playing with Russell Westbrook getting a ton of run. I think bringing in the young Cam Thomas could be something that, hey, we'll give you your second chance, see how you are, get you some more touches, maybe boost you up a little bit. I also look at a team like Houston. Again, don't know the stylistic fit, but that is a team that lost Fred VanVleet early in the year. Gives them another guard that can handle the ball, run the offense. Of course, it'll probably end up being someone like Oklahoma City or San Antonio just because. Right, but other than that, man, I just don't see a ton of big fits just right off the dome for Cam Thomas. Maybe a Boston type, but Boston made the trade for Anthony Simons and has all the tax implications. I don't know where their money is, but again, maybe he's a guy who come in and fit that role that Ant was with a backup role. That would be a rich get richer type. Atlanta is one that, okay, you got rid of Trae Young, you could bring in another guard, and I know they're trying to work some things. And I always look at Orlando, even though they went out and got Desmond Bane. I think that's been one of their biggest weaknesses, is just a guy who can go score from the guard position. So those are kind of some of the teams I would look out for. Now, speaking of all those teams I just mentioned, let's take a look at some of the scores real quick around the league tonight, because see if some of them impacted your Blazers, and they may have. First off, Brooklyn beat the Wizards 127-113. The Rockets down the Thunder 112-106. One that does have an impact here for your Trailblazers. The Spurs beat the Mavericks 138-125, so the gap between Portland and Dallas grows a little bit bigger. The Magic beat the Jazz 120-117, so the gap between your Trailblazers and the Jazz grows a little bigger. Charlotte beats Atlanta 126-119. Denver over Chicago 136-120. The Lakers beat the Warriors 105-99. Keep in mind the Warriors are currently 8th in the standings, so will they be good without Jimmy Butler and the addition of Kristaps Porzingis as the season winds down? We shall see, but there's a gap there that Portland is trying to climb. The Blazers' next opponent, the 76ers, beat the Suns 109-103, and the Cavs beat the Kings 132-126. Travis Scott bombed the post-game interview, and I just laughed because I was like, does that mean James Harden is the final boss now? For all you wrestling guys who are listening who understand that reference. And then, of course, Portland beat the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. And why does that all matter? Why do some of these scores matter that I just told you? Well, you look at the updated standings right now. Portland has climbed to 9th in the West, so they are sitting there in the play-in. But they are tied with the Clippers, who, keep in mind, they did win their last game, but they traded James Harden, they traded Ivica Zubac, so they traded 2 of their top 3 guys. How will they sustain this? We shall see. But the 2 games over Memphis now creates a 4-game gap between Portland and Memphis, and a loss by Dallas tonight, that is a 5.5-game gap between Portland and Dallas. 2 teams right there on the outside of the play-in. Now, the Golden State Warriors, a team we talked about, it's going to be interesting to watch how they play out the rest of the year without Jimmy Butler and trying to get Kristaps Porzingis in, and they've had their ups and downs. Now, Steph Curry is still Steph Curry, so odds are they will probably win more than they lose. But right now, the gap between 9 and 8, where the Blazers are right now, is just 3 games. 3 games. So a lot to watch, because I don't see Memphis winning a lot of games. I see Dallas not winning a lot of games. They've lost 7 in a row. And the Clippers will lose a few here because they're rebranding. And the thing is that pick is owned by Oklahoma City, so that hurts. And then Golden State, what will they do the rest of the way? The point is, I think these 2 games were crucial for Portland, and now they sit in a spot where they can really dial this in and solidify themselves as a play-in team. We shall see. The gap now to the next team up there at 7 is Phoenix, who's 9 games back from first place, and they have a 6-game gap a lead, as it were, over the Portland Trailblazers. That might be that's a lot of work to overcome over this amount of time. But we've seen it happen before. We have seen teams made massive jumps. We shall see if the Blazers can make a run. All right, that is going to do it for the fifth quarter tonight. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, chatting, sending me some good comments and questions on the YouTube chat. Once again, massive shout-out to my friend Sam, giving me another awesome book to have to read to the kids. Look at that. Mrs. Know-It's-All, Awesome Adventures of Alphabetical Rhymes. Look it up on Amazon. Go buy yourself a copy. And again, get some rest. Enjoy the big game tomorrow. I could not care less who wins that game. Oh, man, your division rival could win a Super Bowl in your stadium, in your locker room. I don't care. It's not that deep. Super Bowl has to be played somewhere. I do think, bias aside, that Seattle wins this game. I really do. But most of the time, Chad asks me for my expert NFL opinion, and then I am wrong. So maybe if I speak it into existence, Seattle will not win this game. Seattle 27. Is that possible? Okay. 27-17. I like that score. 27-17. Why not? Sounds good to me. Big game tomorrow. I'm just looking forward to the chili. And then Monday night, Blazers back in action right here in the friendly confines of the Moda Center. Game 5 of their 5-game homestand against the Philadelphia 76ers before they head back on the road for 2 quick games against Minnesota and Utah. So once again, Philadelphia Monday night. Tip-off at 7, which means I will have Blazers game day for you starting at 5. Once again, final score from Moda Center tonight. Your Portland Trailblazers 122. Your Memphis Grizzlies opponent, 115. For Michael Shacker pushing the buttons, picking the songs. And for the boss man, Chad Doing, who's doing some hard work behind the scenes to let me call Hawaii Rainbow Warrior basketball on Rip City Radio 620. Have a good night, everyone. Rip City, I'll talk to you on the next one.